Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I am bringing you my August TBR. So TBRs are notoriously things that don't necessarily work for me, but it is a really nice way of highlighting the books that I have on my nightstand, the books that I know I'm going to be picking up soon, and the books that I'm really looking forward to reading. This month, all of these books are going to be ARCs from publishers, both physical and from NetGalley, and they're all books that come out in August and September. I have plenty of ARCs to catch up from on earlier in the year. Consider all of those on this list as well, but I wanted to highlight some upcoming releases that I know I really want to read. So the very first book that I have is one that I have been banging on about pretty much all year. I haven't managed to get to it yet, but I am planning on reading it in July. This is A Master of Gin by P. Djèlí Clark. Now, if you've been here for a while, you probably know that I discovered P. Djèlí Clark's writing during lockdown and completely fell in love with it. I think at this point I've read everything that he has released. This is the last one that I haven't read though. So this is the third book in a series that takes place in a kind of alternate steampunky 1912 Cairo. And this is the first full-length novel in that series. The very first book is A Dead Djinn in Cairo, which is a short story. Then we have The Haunting of Tramcar 015, which is a novella, and now we have this. They just keep getting longer and longer. I absolutely adored those first two books. I am completely obsessed with them. I love them, and so this is one of my most anticipated books of the year, and I am so excited. So this book is out in the UK in August from Orbit Books. This is already out in the US. I believe it came out in May, and it is going to be so good. So basically we revisit the main character from A Dead Djinn in Cairo, that very first book, who is a young woman named Fatima who is working basically for the paranormal police in Cairo. So in this book we have a sort of secret brotherhood, and one of its members is killed, and so she is called onto the case. So this brotherhood is centered around this man named Al-Jahiz, who is the person who basically tore the fabric between our world and the world of the Jinn, allowing the Jinn to come through and basically making Cairo a superpower. This was about 50 years ago, so we have someone who is claiming to be this man, and he is the murderer, and so he is claiming that he has returned to the modern age to condemn it for its social oppression, and his dangerous magical abilities instigate unrest in the streets of Cairo that threatens to spill over into the global stage. This is going to be amazing. Some of my good friends have already read this. I believe Judith from Dead Good Book Reviews read this a while ago and really loved it. She is a big fan of the series as well, so I'm so pumped for this. I think I'm going to absolutely love it. Then I am lucky enough to have another one of my most anticipated books of the year from another favorite author who I discovered in lockdown. So this is Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This comes out in August from Joe Fletcher Books. I don't know a huge amount about this one intentionally. I have read, I think I'm about 20 or so pages in. I know that it is a book that has multiple points of view from a wide cast of characters, and this is a noir that is set in 1970s Mexico City. One of the things that I love about Silvia Moreno Garcia is her incredible versatility with writing. So I discovered her through Gods of Jade and Shadow, which is a fantasy book in Mexico, and then I also read Mexican Gothic, which I absolutely adored. That is a Gothic novel. This is a noir. Another one of her books called The Beautiful Ones, which I read, I believe, in June, which is incredible, is basically a historical fiction book that takes place in a fantasy historical setting. I don't know if those words make sense, but I really loved it. I love her books. I love her writing. I think she's absolutely incredible, an astonishing writer, and this is going to be so good. From the little that I have read already, I think it's just going to be fabulous. The next book that I have that comes out in August comes out from Tor Books. I believe it's a novella, and it's one I'm very curious about because it is one with two authors. So this is Light Chaser by Peter F. Hamilton and Gareth L. Powell. I have never read anything by Peter F. Hamilton, but Gareth Powell is, I think, a great writer. I've read a couple of things by him, and this one I think is going to be really exciting. So I absolutely adore the premise of this book, so I'm just going to kind of read it out to you, which I realize is cheating, but bear with me. So we have Amal, and she is a light chaser, one of a number of explorers who travel the universe alone except for their onboard AI, trading trinkets for life stories. But when she listens to the stories sent down through the ages, she hears the same voice talking directly to her from different times on different worlds. She comes to understand that something terrible is happening and only she is in a position to do anything about it, and it will cost her everything to put it right. This is one of those books where I'm really curious about it. I'm really excited, but reading that description, I would have expected like a full-length novel. So if this is a novella, I'm very curious to see how these two managed to make such a story that sounds like it could be so epic in scale into something that is quite short. So moving on to September, I would really like to get a little bit ahead, and I'm so excited for this book. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. So this is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Reading like uplifting and warm fuzzy books is not usually something that I tend to do. A lot of my books tend to veer towards quite the dark side. So when I read House in the Cerulean Sea, I was just absolutely blown away. I really loved that book. It was a little too sickly sweet for me in places, but overall I just adored it. So this is his next book that's kind of in the same vein as House in the Cerulean Sea. So we follow a character named Wallace who is picked up by a reaper at his own funeral, and Wallace is maybe having a little bit of a hard time accepting that he may be dead. But enter Hugo, who is the owner of a peculiar tea shop, and he promises to help Wallace cross over, and Wallace decides to kind of take him up on this. But even in death, he's not ready to abandon the life that he barely lived. So when Wallace is given 1 week to cross over, he sets about living a lifetime in 7 days. So apparently it is hilarious, haunting, and kind, and an uplifting story about a life spent at the office and a death spent building a home. I think that this is going to delight people who loved House in the Cerulean Sea like I did, and I think this is going to be a really wonderful read. And the last book that I wanted to bring up in this July TBR is one I'm very intrigued by because I've read 2 books by this author. I loved one of them, I hated the other. So I'm very curious to see where this one is going to fall in that spectrum. This is Apples Never Fall by Leanne Moriarty. So I loved Big Little Lies, and I hated 9 Perfect Strangers. I hated it so much. So I'm very curious to see how this is going to go for me. But judging by the blurb, it sounds like it could be something that I'm very interested in. So we follow the Delaney family in this book, and they love each other dearly. They're kind of this sort of seen as like this perfect family. They have 4 beautiful grown-up children, a family business to envy, and the golden years of retirement ahead of them. So when Joy Delaney, the wife, disappears, there's no note, she doesn't call, her bike is missing. Naturally, everyone can't stop talking about it. How did Stan scratch his face? Why are there no answers from the police? And who was the stranger who entered and suddenly left their lives? What are they hiding? But for the Delaney children, there is much more terrifying question. Did they ever really know their parents at all? Because the closer the family, the bigger the lie. This sounds much more in line with Big Little Lies than 9 Perfect Strangers was, so I have really high hopes for this one, but I'm very curious to see how this goes. I'm a little bit more cautious about this one than I am about some of the others. So that is my August TBR. I have some really good stuff that I'm going to be reading this coming month. I never am able to stick to TBRs, so there's going to be a ton of other stuff on my August wrap-up, so definitely keep an eye out for that at the end of the month. But until then, I would love to hear in the comments below if you have any planned reading for August, if you've read any of these books, or if they're in your TBR. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.